On a cold dawn of 14th October 1943, the skies above central Germany roared with fire and steel. The once confident formations of Allied bombers crossed into hostile territory, unescorted and vulnerable, sailing into a storm of flak, radar-guided fighters, and anti-aircraft fire. Europe was at war. Since the Blitz across Poland and the fall of France in 1940, the Royal Air Force and the United States Army Air Forces had turned the heavens into a battlefield, launching thousands of heavy bombers deep into the Reich's industrial heart. Germany's mighty air defense, radar, flak, night fighters, had sharpened into a lethal machine. For the bomber crews, each mission was a gamble with their lives. It was in this brutal sky war that a new type of fighter emerged, an aircraft forged in urgency, refined for supremacy, the P-51 Mustang. Today, you'll see how it became adored by its pilots, dominated in horrific dogfights, and saved the lives of countless Allied bomber crews. When Germany's blitzkrieg rolled across Europe, the world watched in disbelief. The British RAF fought desperately against the Luftwaffe's relentless assaults, and the Battle of Britain proved one thing beyond doubt: air superiority would decide the fate of nations. But Britain's supply of fighters was stretched thin. The Spitfires and Hurricanes were valiant, yet too few. Out of options, the British turned to North American aviation, asking for more P-40 Warhawks. Instead, North American made a bold proposal: to design an entirely new fighter, faster, sleeker, more efficient, built from the ground up. In only 117 days, the prototype took flight, the aircraft that would become the Mustang. It was agile, deadly, and easy to mass produce. But its first heart, the Allison engine, gasped for air at high altitude. Then came the turning point. The British replaced that engine with their own, the Rolls-Royce Merlin, and the skies would never be the same again. With the Merlin engine roaring beneath its polished frame, the Mustang became a different creature entirely. It climbed higher, flew farther, and outpaced nearly every fighter on Earth. Faster than the Spitfire, steadier than the Hurricane, and with a range unmatched by anything in the air, the new Mustang was no longer just an experiment. It was a weapon of destiny. The United States took notice and ordered thousands. Variants rolled off assembly lines, each more refined than the last, but one version would become immortal: the P-51D. The first Mustangs entered combat not in grand dogfights, but in the shadows. Their early engines limited them to low-altitude operations, reconnaissance, and ground attack. They flew mere 50 feet above the waves of the English Channel, weaving through radar nets to strike trains, convoys, and parked aircraft deep inside enemy lines. Fast, nimble, and unpredictable, they shredded supply routes and slipped back across the sea before German pilots could react. Armed with a deadly mix of 30 and 50 caliber guns, later upgraded to 6 roaring 50 cal Browning M2s, the Mustang was already earning its legend. But its true destiny awaited above the clouds, in the long, blood-red corridors of Europe, where bombers flew toward death. By 1942, Allied command faced a brutal truth. To cripple Nazi Germany before invading Europe, they needed to destroy its war machine, its factories, oil, and railroads. The plan: relentless day and night bombing. British bombers struck under the cover of darkness. Americans attacked under daylight, trusting in formation, flying, and defensive guns to keep them safe. At first, it seemed to work. Bombers returned from France and the Low Countries with light damage. But as their targets moved deeper into Germany, everything changed. Flak batteries multiplied, radar nets thickened, and the Luftwaffe returned from the east, hungry for vengeance. Without escort fighters that could fly the full distance from England to Germany and back, the bombers were slaughtered. The skies over Schweinfurt and Regensburg became graveyards of aluminum. 1/3 of the bombers never made it home. Hundreds of young airmen vanished in flames or parachutes that never opened. Desperate experiments followed. Gunship bombers like the YB-40 Flying Fortress, bristling with extra turrets. But they were slow, heavy, and useless. Only one answer remained: a fighter that could go the distance, The Mustang was that answer. Engineers fitted external drop tanks beneath its wings and redesigned its fuel system. Now it could escort bombers all the way to Berlin and bring its pilot back alive. By mid-1944, the definitive P-51D roared into European skies. With its 650 caliber guns, its bubble canopy offering a perfect 360-degree view, and the mighty Merlin engine tuned for high-altitude performance, it became the apex predator of the air. When German interceptors rose to meet the bombers, they met their doom. The once feared Bf-110 Zersterer was shredded from the skies. Even the nimble Bf-109 and FW-190 found themselves outclimbed, outturned, and outgunned. The Luftwaffe tried to adapt, arming their planes with heavy 20 and 30 mm cannons to blast apart bombers. But the added weight made them sluggish, easy prey for Mustangs prowling above. German commanders soon organized mass attacks. Waves of FW-190 fighters escorted by Bf-109s, hoping to break Allied formations through sheer chaos. But the Mustangs changed the rules. Instead of waiting beside the bombers, Mustang squadrons swept ahead of the formations, striking first. They hunted the Luftwaffe wherever it hid, on runways, in hangars, even taxiing for takeoff. The policy was simple: destroy them before they can climb. It worked. Airfields burned across Europe. Veteran German pilots vanished, replaced by terrified cadets with barely 20 hours in the cockpit. The Luftwaffe's proud boast faded into bitter humor. If you see a white plane, it's American. If you see a black plane, it's British. If you see no planes at all, that's the Luftwaffe. The Mustang's legend grew not only from victories, but from acts of fury and justice. One story stands out: Major Richard Peterson. During a deep strike mission over Germany, Peterson watched helplessly as B-17s in his care were torn apart by enemy fighters. Parachutes blossomed across the sky, dozens of airmen descending, defenseless. Then he saw it, a German fighter deliberately circling back, firing at the men as they hung in their chutes. Rage filled him. Peterson dove on the attacker, his Mustang howling through the wind. He didn't aim to kill, just to cripple. A burst of tracer fire ripped through the enemy plane. Smoke poured out and the German pilot bailed. Now the tables had turned. The hunter dangled helplessly beneath a parachute of his own. Peterson lined up his sights, unleashed his 6 Brownings, and sent justice streaking through the sky. The message was clear: no mercy for those who had shown none. As the war neared its end, a new terror appeared: the Me-163 Comet and the Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighters. The Tu-62 was a monster. 4 cannons, rocket armament, and speeds beyond anything propeller-driven aircraft could match. Mustang pilots quickly realized they couldn't win in the air, but they could strike on the ground. They prowled around jet bases, ambushing the Me-262s as they took off or landed when their engines were still spooling down. The Mustang once again adapted, not faster but smarter. The jet came too late, too few to change the war. When victory banners rose over Berlin, the Mustang's duty was not yet done. In the Pacific, its long range made it the ideal escort for American bombers striking Japan. There it faced the Mitsubishi Zero, a legendary Japanese fighter, nimble, elegant, but by 1945 hopelessly outclassed. The Mustang carved across the Pacific skies with ease, clearing paths for bombers and ending dogfights in seconds. When the guns finally fell silent, a new age was already dawning: the jet age. The P-51's propeller blades slowed, replaced by the whistle of turbines. Yet its spirit refused to die. For years it remained in service across the world, flown by nations who understood its worth. Pilots spoke of it not as a machine, but as a companion, reliable, forgiving, fierce. They said the Mustang didn't just fly, it danced. It climbed like a falcon, struck like lightning, and carried men home when lesser planes would have failed. The P-51 Mustang was more than an aircraft. It was hope with wings. It was the shield that guarded those who carried bombs into the heart of darkness. It was the blade that cut through tyranny's sky. Because of it, thousands of airmen lived to see another dawn. Because of it, the Allied bombers reached their targets and the war's end came sooner. Its silhouette remains etched in history. The long nose, the bubble canopy, the roar of the Merlin echoing like a hymn of freedom. Even today, when one takes to the sky at air shows, veterans look up, eyes glistening and whisper, "That sound, that's the sound of victory." In the end, the Mustang was not just metal and rivets. It was the courage of its pilots, the brilliance of its engineers, and the heartbeat of nations fighting for survival. From the fields of England to the skies of Tokyo, it wrote its name across history in exhaust trails and fire. The war gave birth to many legends, but only one could truly claim the sky: the P-51 Mustang, the guardian of bombers, the nightmare of the Luftwaffe, and the winged symbol of freedom that helped end a world at war.